Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on who you are around the world. This is Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Month celebration, and we're celebrating this first Diversity and Inclusion Dialogue session with a special guest. We have with us Federico Subervi-Vélez, PhD. He is Honorary Fellow of the Latin American, Caribbean, and Iberian Studies University Program, University of Wisconsin-Madison. Served as professor at 4 U.S. universities and visiting professor at several universities in Latin America and Europe. His most recent co-authored book, Para entender los medios de comunicación de Puerto Rico, periodismo en entornos coloniales y en tiempos de crisis, ediciones Filos, 2022. An English language version of this book was published in 2020. He is a native of San Germán, Puerto Rico, but currently resides in Austin, Texas, from where he is directing research and collaborating with various projects related to Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rican diaspora in the U.S. So, Federico, it's an honor to have you with us today. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for this opportunity to share some thoughts.
And your experience, which is very valuable in the field. And
it's been many years, yes.
Thank you. Based on your vast experience at the academia, while also as researcher and book author, which you are, what is fundamental to begin to understand the diversity, equality, and inclusion principles?
And there's two things that I tell my students for many years. One is the demographic imperative, which means that over the world, the norm of ethnic racial composition of cities, states, and nations is changing rapidly. That has always been a change over the decades and eons. There's always been changes. And that's something indispensable that has to be understood. The second thought is that although those changes can be challenging, they are much more positive than negative. They ultimately enrich the local communities and the regional communities wherever those changes are taking place if they are brought into the fold of the dominant society and incorporated, and the dominant society incorporates as on its own some of the richness of those ethnic and racial groups that change the landscape. So anyone who's interested in knowing about those positive changes can find numerous examples in practically all aspects of society: medicine, education, music, cuisine, sports, business, and much, much more. So it is, in this regard, indispensable to focus on the positive contributions of those ethnic groups while collaborating to overcome the challenges of the economic pressures that those changes in the demographics imply. Sadly, too many news media representations overlook the positive and repeat instead the challenges without offering solutions for the new dynamics of the ethnic racial composition of societies.
So we have a challenge there to work with the media to have greater representation of the reality of the population and the diverse groups that they should be serving.
Yes, absolutely.
To be more accurate, and respond to social changes, because we know that media have an agenda and they said what we're thinking about, but they should respond to the realities of the different social groups they serve.
Absolutely. The news media, the mass media in general, and nowadays the social media are the windows through which we know about what's happening outside of our immediate environment. And if those windows are tainted or have only a partial picture or draw only or present primarily some negative aspects of what's happening outside our window, we overlook the flowers and the blooms and the new creations that happen in other parts of what's not being shown. So it's a challenge to the media to emphasize the positive, not just the negative that may sell more or have more advertisers, but not necessarily improve the society in which they are presenting those images.
Balance and truth, balance and
Yes,
honesty. It's central in this context. You're
absolutely.
also provost faculty associate for diversity, equity, and inclusion at Kent State University in Ohio, which is not the norm, sadly, in the United States. In your view, is it a must for universities to adapt their communications curriculum to include DEI?
Not only the communications curriculum, all sorts of curriculum. DEI is a must, but also at the level of administration and other forms of education, because the bottom line with DEI is learning how to best take advantage and maximize the benefits of those changing demographics. If educators, administrators, and even students are not well versed in such matters, they will be ill-equipped to face and overcome the challenges presented by those changes. They will succumb to the often repeated stereotypes and lies, especially in entertainment media and some right-wing news outlets that are there to demonize the others and create polarizations. More than anything else, DEI programs enhance the understanding while developing solutions for the challenges and in forms of collaboration with all sectors of society. The absence of those limits the opportunities to understand and work well with that. And I remember one of my first students at the University of Texas who was a bit disgruntled because she had to take, the only course that she could take was diversity. It was titled Communication and Ethnic Groups. And she needed to graduate, and that was the only course she could get into. And she was a blonde, blue-eyed, very well established family that had limited exposure to these things, and she was a bit apprehensive taking a course on things that she was not comfortable with to begin with. A year later, after she had graduated, she wrote me a note and said, "Thank you for that course, because it was the one course that me as a radio, television, film major got me the job, while other students from advertising and marketing and public relations had no idea how to engage with a diverse market where the company that I was being interviewed for wanted to engage."
Wow.
And it was very telling. And I used to say that story every year at the beginning of the semester. This is an opportunity for you to know the world that's out there. And diversity, equity, and inclusion is part of that educational process that's indispensable for any discipline.
To understand and to generate sensibility and empathy, because your truth is not necessarily the other's truth or
Very.
reality or needs or wants. Interesting, very interesting, that example. Being co-editor-in-chief of the Oxford Encyclopedia of Race, Ethnicity, and Communication, you must have had a great set of learnings you can share with us. What a fascinating experience. We're eager to hear about it.
While taking that opportunity to edit an encyclopedia, it was like, wow. First of all, thanks for the honor for inviting me to do so. And second, then it became a process of reading essays, dozens of manuscripts submitted for this encyclopedia from all over the world, absolutely all over the world, every single continent, authors from every single continent, well, not Antarctica, not there, but all of the other continents have shared essays. And what we find in reading it, at least I personally find in reading, is that the challenges of ethnic minority groups are similar all over the world too. They're facing the same issues that we were mentioning here: the discrimination, the lack of understanding, the constant stereotyping of the minority groups in the dominant media. All of that is happening almost in every country. But then there are these people who are showing that and helping overcome those challenges, because many of those challenges are the product of colonial rule. They are the consequences of these 1700s colonial empires that had to minimize the local population in their self-esteem and their self-worth so that they could be dominated and extract the riches from the countries. So these populations are overcoming that. They're battling that. They're dealing with that every time. And when I'm reading these, I celebrate every time I read a document about that documents the national, regional, and local efforts to incorporate these diversity groups and improve their presence and participation in the media. That's really encouraging when I see that. There's also the sad part of seeing how many challenges there are, but it's also great to see how, again, all over the world, there are many people overcoming those challenges of the past stereotypes from the colonial rule.
Great that besides the challenges, they're achieving progress and visibility.
Yes.
So in this context, with so many challenges, what is the solution? What can we do as citizens and professionals to generate understanding and keep on overcoming barriers? What's your view on this?
I am totally convinced that there are pragmatic and urgent solutions to these challenges with these changing worlds. And one of the particular challenges from the misrepresentation, the stereotyping, and these talking about the others as if they were enemies of society because they are not the same as the dominant group. But the challenge to that and the solution for that, for me, has always been, in the most recent times, what is called media, or particularly news literacy. This means guiding students of all ages, as well as adults, to understand why the media operate as they do. It means holding on and learning the tools that facilitate telling apart the truth from the lies and the manipulations of the media. This type of literacy is even more important now, given the tsunami of polarized content that is being produced and disseminated via social media, and is going to be even more challenging given more such type of content that will be produced through artificial intelligence, or maybe artificial stupidity of the people who engage in that type of stereotyping through these new mechanisms, instead of using those mechanisms to improve the understanding. Media literacy, news literacy is a solution.
Okay, and we have a role to play in public relations and communications practitioners.
Yeah, because media literacy, I'm sorry, is not just for the classroom in a class about media literacy. Media literacy and news literacy is something that can be done by organizations, by churches, by clubs, by community groups, by individuals, to help overcome those challenges.
Exactly. To be able to advance in terms of DEI, do you have any other recommendations for communications and public relations students and practitioners?
Yes, the first thing that I tell is verify before you like. Before you put a like on anything or share it, verify. Verify so that you are not pushing forward something that might seem interesting and great, but it could be fictitious, it could be fake, it could be something that is detrimental, and sometimes some of those come with scams and other things that you have to be aware of. Mm-hmm. The second is expand your reading knowledge, expand what you're reading. People should expand their knowledge horizons. They should not stay in their echo chamber of only talking about and reading about things that they know and they like. Those are silos that are similar in points of views, but not necessarily enhancing for people's knowledge and understanding of what's happening around the world. So this is one way, opening the horizons of what is read, of what is understood, of what is conversed. Getting outside of the comfort zone is one way to expand media literacy, news literacy, and just general knowledge and literacy about the changing demographics.
We need to build bridges. We need to educate more. We need to know more. We need to be in a constant progression in terms of information, accurate information to identify accurate sources and the truth in a polarized world where diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's a real value, a real platform to help us develop.
Yes.
Not only from different standpoints, but to generate greater good.
There's some people who are narrow-minded and think that anybody who applies for a job shouldn't be asked about diversity, equity, and inclusion because it's just their skills and their credentials. Well, one of the best credentials and skills any job applicant could have is to know about diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that will certainly solidify the diversity goals, the enhanced goals, the outreach goals of any organization, be it a university, a public relations company, any company that a public relations person works for. The more you know about those issues, about those demographics, about those changes, that is a skill that should be sought in every applicant, regardless of what job they're looking for.
Maybe that's something we're going to be seeing gaining more track nowadays. We're hoping for that to gain more traction nowadays in the corporate world. So Federico.
Yes, yeah, in the corporate world, hopefully, because there's some legislatures across the country in very conservative states that are eliminating that as a value instead of enhancing it as a value. Which
is concerning.
Very.
And then the role of the corporations, of the private sector, again, in the eyes of the citizens, of the professionals, of the community-based organizations, have a greater role to play to create social harmony and understanding. So expectations are there from the corporate world.
Public relations professionals are an important key, indispensable persons to help government, corporate, and the general public understand these changing demographics, because you have skills on how to get those messages across more efficiently than others do. So use those skills to direct the better understanding of the challenges and opportunities that come with the changing demographics.
That is our aim. That is our goal, and this type of dialogues contribute to that. So thank you, Federico. It has been a great conversation full of insights and valuable knowledge. On behalf of the Global Alliance, thanks for participating at our Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Month and this interesting dialogue. See you all next time.
Thank you.